now available in paperback and e-readers. Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess. The goddess next door takes on the threat of a deadly digital diva driven to destroy the world in this action-packed, all-new Isis series adventure. Get Isis, Revenge of the Cyber Goddess featuring a bonus pin-up and the other two books in the Cyber Goddess saga at online bookstores everywhere today. I've received some comments from black women trying to deflect from holding the Black Matriarchy accountable for the death of Ma'Khia Bryant. Now, some of these black women want to say that Ma'Khia Bryant's death is primarily the responsibility of her father because her father was not there to take care of her. Now, I will agree to a point that Ma'Khia Bryant's father should bear some responsibility for his daughter's death, but when I took a critical examination of Ma'Khia Bryant's story, the persons who are clearly responsible are the members of the Black Matriarchy because it was the members of the Black Matriarchy who were the ones who made the decisions that led to Ma'Khia Bryant's death. Now, the first person who I hold responsible in this Black Matriarchy for Ma'Khia Bryant's death is Ma'Khia Bryant's mother, because her household had to be a complete mess for the state to say that she was incompetent and incapable of caring for her two daughters. Because if you cannot really care for your single daughters and they have to be sent to foster care, then that shows you clearly are a complete failure as a parent. And this woman practically failed at the front lines in caring for her daughter, and this is what led to her being in that situation that led to her losing her life at the hands of that white police officer. Now, the second person to fail Ma'Khia Bryant was her foster mother. Now, this foster system was supposed to be a place where a child could be safe from an unfit parent. But instead of it being a place where a child like Ma'Khia Bryant and her sister could be safe from their unfit mother, it proved to be just as dysfunctional as the single mother household that your Ma'Khia Bryant came from. Because in that single mother household, you had a lot of chaos, and in that foster mother home, you had an equal amount of chaos. Now, in this foster mother home, it was just even more dysfunctional as I see it, because instead of it being a home where this foster child could get some stability as related to the crisis she was having in her life due to her mother not being able to meet her needs, she was placed in an environment that was twice as toxic because the biological daughters, who one of which was a 28-year-old woman, wanted to live to make Ma'Khia Bryant's life miserable. Because according to some reports, you have a 28-year-old grown woman coming to the house looking to antagonize a 16-year-old girl and I believe an 11-year-old girl. And that's really troubling because you would think a 28-year-old woman would be looking to be an example to the younger girls of a role model of what to be. But that doesn't happen in the Black Matriarchy because in the Black Matriarchy, women compete against each other because when there is no man in the house to set order, women start competing against each other and they start to get really jealous as they're competing with each other and look to do harm to each other. And that's the par for the course in your single mother households. And what happened here was Ma'Khia Bryant was transferred from one dysfunctional single mother household to a foster single mother household where she had to deal with another woman and her jealousy. Because when women see another woman entering an environment, they get upset, insecure because they can't be the center of attention. And I believe that's what happened in the household of that foster home of Ma'Khia Bryant was put in. This female, she saw Ma'Khia Bryant and her sister coming into the home, and when she saw them coming into the home, she did not see a vulnerable young woman who needed support and needed her emotional needs met, or her emotional security provided for her by a surrogate. No, she saw competition for the attention of her mother and her grandmother, and she was angry about that competition because when females see another female, they get really emotional, they get jealous, they get angry, and they start acting out so that they can eliminate that competition. And that's what happened in that matriarchal environment that led to Ma'Khia Bryant's life practically being miserable because these daughters, they saw Ma'Khia Bryant and her sister being the new center of attention in that home, and that's one of the things that led to these women becoming really jealous, really insecure, and then acting violently towards Ma'Khia Bryant and her sister. And that's what led to a lot of the alleged arguing, a lot of the fighting that went on in that home. Was you had a new pair of girls coming in, and the grown women angry and insecure about the attention they were receiving from the mother and the grandmother. And you also had a culture clash because you had one girl coming from a single mother household and another and trying to adjust to another, and that also created issues as related to authority because as your women go out here and compete for attention, they also compete to try to jockey to gain positions of power. And this is primarily what happens when you have females in charge of things. Females will start fighting each other, and they're fighting to gain power in a situation. And that's what happened in Ma'Khia Bryant's foster home. Was we got a lot of chaos, and we got that chaos because when you again have females in charge of other females, they go out here looking to fight to gain dominance and control in front of an elder. And things got so bad at that foster home that Ma'Khia Bryant felt so desperate that she had to call that beta male of a father in order to get help. And that's really the saddest part about this whole situation is that she knew who her father was, but this man could not even take a leadership role and an authority role in his household. And the main reason he probably could not take that leadership and authoritative role is because probably Ma'Khia Bryant's mother wouldn't let him take that leadership role because she was the strong, independent woman who did not need a man and did not want anything to do with that man, because if this man was actively involved in his daughter's life, she probably wouldn't be in the foster system. But this beta male probably was one of these weak guys out here, and while he didn't take charge of his household, he was brought in at the last minute. And again, that just shows how he came from a matriarchal home, because only a guy from a matriarchal home is going to try to protect his daughter at the last minute. No, a man who comes from a patriarchal home, he is going to set order from day one. He is going to provide for his family from day one, and he is going to protect his family from day one. And he's not going to have any of his children being a part of that state run system. No, only males from the matriarchy will allow this to happen because males from the matriarchal system do not understand their roles as men as related to the Most High Living God's order. They don't understand their roles as men in the Most High Living God's order, and they don't understand who they are accountable to in the Most High Living God's order. Now, a man who understands his role in God's patriarchy knows they are accountable to the Son, Jesus Christ, and they are accountable to the Father, the Most High Living God. And as stewards of the Most High Living God, they understand their job is to build the family by going forth and multiplying, and also going out here to care for the family. So when you have a man who is in charge, he is going to go out here and take care of his family, and he's going to insist that his family not be a part of that state-run system. He is going to look to care and provide for his family's needs and his house's needs, so his daughter will have her room, her clothes, and everything taken care for her, so that she doesn't have to go and be a part of the state-run system. But women who have bought into the white feminist system and bought into this black matriarchy, they believe in being strong and independent. They believe in they don't need a man, and they believe they don't have to submit to the leadership or authority of a man. And because they don't want to submit to the leadership and authority of a man, and because they did not want to submit to the leadership of a man under God's natural order, they decided to submit to the leadership and authority of white men under the state. And as they submitted to the leadership and authority of white men under the state, these white men made black women the heads of household in a de facto state. And I went in depth on this subject in my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, which is on Amazon.com right now. And I talked about how, as the de facto heads of household in black community, these stewards were put in charge by your white leftists to control the black community. And under their stewardship, we went from a functional household under black male authority to a household that became nothing but chaos, because with the female in charge, we didn't get any leadership. We just got a lot of envy, jealousy, and cattiness and disorganization. And that is what we saw in reports as related to the two households Ma'Khia Bryant was a part of. And that whole household was just a complete mess because, one, the mother could not really lead her household, and two, this foster mother could not lead her household. And many of these black women, they want to talk about, again, this father being a failure, but where did that father possibly come from anyway? That's a critical question I want to ask most of those black women, because when I looked at that man in that video and the way he was behaving, fighting these females, it's clear to me that he also was a product of this failed black matriarchy, because the constant as related to this whole Ma'Khia Bryant tragedy is the black matriarchy, and this whole incident is a condemning statement on how dysfunctional your black matriarchy is here in America, and how this black matriarchy has put many children like Ma'Khia Bryant at risk. And instead of taking accountability for the failure of the black matriarchy, we have some black women out here who want to try to deflect, talking about how this is all about the black patriarchy's failure, but how can black men be responsible for a community that will not allow it to be leaders or authority figures, And how can black men be responsible for a community that forsook black male leadership in order to gain resources from the state and submitted to the authority of the state? That's a critical question I would like to ask many of these black women who want to sit here and talk about how this is all this black father's fault, when this black father, as it looks like to me, came from one of these black single mothers and was a product of that single mother household and was perpetuating the same dysfunctional culture he had learned by his behaviors we saw in the video. Because no father is going to sit there and be fighting grown women for his daughter. No, a father who is under God's order and submitting to the Most High, his daughter is never going to be a part of that foster system, because he is going to be protecting his family and he's going to be leading his family so that they won't be in a situation where they're out here and being vulnerable and targeted by these predators and being targeted by individuals who would do them harm. So any father worth his salt is going to go out here, and if he even has to go out here and pick up cans to provide for his family, he will do that because he loves his family. And you want to sit there and talk about, again, black men, but this is not a black man here. This is a beta male, and that was shown by his behaviors, because a father is not coming in last to protect his daughter. No, a father is going to be first as a shield to protect his daughter and his family. And a woman who is under God's natural order is going to submit to that man's authority and understand he is going to look out for their best interest. But in the case of Ma'Khia Bryant, there was nobody there to look out for this poor young girl. And sadly, she became a victim as related to this whole black matriarchy, which targeted her for abuse due to its envious and jealous ways. And then she became a victim of a officer's bullet because she was so caught up in her emotions regarding all of the harassment she was receiving at the hands of these females who are a part of the black matriarchy. And what's even more disturbing about this black matriarchy is that you have Ma'Khia Bryant's mother sitting there talking about how she wants to sue the state for her daughter's death. But her daughter would never have been placed in jeopardy had she not been an unfit parent. So it takes a lot of audacity for this female to sit there and say, oh, my daughter was killed by the police. Now I'm going to look for a payday as related to my daughter, but I don't want to ever take any sort of accountability or responsibility as related to my daughter's death because it was my incompetence that led to my daughter's death. That's something that Ma'Khia Bryant's mother doesn't want to say, and sadly she's sitting there thinking that it's okay to file a lawsuit when it's all part of her fault and overall part of this black matriarchy's fault, because this black matriarchy is an institution where accountability and responsibility are not part of the culture. It's always somebody else's fault, whether it be a black man, a white cop, or whoever, but it's never the black women's fault for the way things turn out. And this young girl would be alive today if it wasn't for the black matriarchy, and it wasn't for the black mother not being responsible, the black foster mother being responsible, and if it wasn't for black women perpetuating a culture of dysfunction over the last decade, which is featured in numerous social media videos where these black women are fighting in the street or fighting in a fast food restaurant, or fighting in a Korean hair and nail salon. If we didn't have those videos, your Ma'Khia Bryant wouldn't have that culture to follow, and she wouldn't think that this was the only way to solve a problem. Now, if we had some sisters out here who were supportive and looking to help this sister, they would have been able to solve this problem and resolve the conflict. But these females, again, all from the matriarchy, everything is about their emotions, everything is about them acting impulsively, and everything is about them acting out in a violent fashion. And because they act out in a violent fashion, sadly, they wind up escalating situations like the one we saw Ma'Khia Bryant be a part of. And then after escalating situations to these crazy and absurd levels, they wind up saying it's somebody else's fault. Again, no accountability, no responsibility, and no sort of self-reflection or self-examination. And that is the most troubling thing about the whole Ma'Khia Bryant situation. A 16-year-old girl is dead, and this 28-year-old grown woman and the other women who are far much older than her never want to self-reflect or self-examine and say, hey, we went out here and did a great wrong by bullying and harassing this young woman over the state of a bedroom. And because we were so caught up in our jealousy over this girl's attention, we wound up costing this girl her life. No sort of self-reflection or self-examination as related to their behavior, but that is par for the course for women who are a part of the Black Matriarchy, because they have been taught by everyone that nothing is their fault, they are not accountable for anything, and that there's always somebody there to give them a pass so they can continue participating in their irresponsible, reckless, and egregious behaviors. And those passes are the thing that lead to a community winding up continuing to be in chaos. Because we're looking at this whole case, we have people who wanted to march and protest against the cop, but the thing they really need to protest against is this Black Matriarchy, which has destroyed the lives of millions of children like your Ma'Khia Bryant over the last 50 years, because this group of females refuses to take accountability, refuses to take responsibility, and refuses to be the leaders and stewards that they said they could be. And it's clear to us, as I see it, that this thing is not going to change, because these women never want to acknowledge their faults, and they want to sit there and say, again, this is the black man's fault. But how can it be the black man's fault when ultimately it was her mother's decision not to submit to the leadership of the father, or to pick a man who was not fit for leadership, and for her to go out here and have this single mother household and be a part of the state. And then when that failed, she then wanted to send her kids to a foster home under another woman, creating a chaotic situation which led to this child losing her life. So everybody wants to look again at the white cop, or they want to look at the black man, but ultimately all of these decisions fall on the women who were a part of this Black Matriarchy. And it's this Black Matriarchy that failed your Ma'Khia Bryant, and it's this Black Matriarchy that really needs to be called out for its extremely dangerous and dysfunctional approaches. And this whole Black Matriarchy needs to be held accountable for once and for all the chaos that they bring to black communities. Now, if you want to learn more about why this Black Matriarchy got established, you can pick up my book, Why 70% of Black Women Are Single, on Amazon.com. And in this book, I talk about why so many black women are single and why they're having a problem having relationships with everyone all throughout the world. And if you also want to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available for the first time in paperback. Why 70% of black women are single. Learn all the reasons why so many black women can't find a husband and why 70% of black women are single. Get your copy of Why 70% of Black Women Are Single on Amazon.com today.